I've come to see that it's not about whether someone's a multiplier or a diminisher. It's about stringing together as many multiplier moments as possible. And I found, like you might guess, that that doesn't involve doing something big. It often involves doing something quite small. And what I want to leave us with is a challenge. What could you do to experiment? As Rich talked with us this earlier, what is a small experiment you might take that would help you create more multiplier moments in your day, in your week, in your year? Let me share a few. If you are a bit of an idea guy, again, I struggle with this, you might take the extreme question challenge. Now, I didn't actually invent the extreme question challenge, but the extreme question challenge kind of found me. It found me about a dozen years ago. I'm working at Oracle. I'm running the corporate university. There I have a pretty big job, but it's nothing compared to my job at home. Because at home, I have 3 small children, and they are ages 6, 4, and 2 years old. Now, is there anyone here in the room who's got the 6, 4, 2 combo pack? Right here. What is bedtime like at your house? Chaos. This was my experience. Chaos every night at a very predictable time. And I'm explaining to my buddy Brian at work, I'm just explaining to him, I said, Brian, I don't know that I'm actually a very good parent right now. I feel like I'm constantly telling my kids what to do. I'm barking orders. I'm like a little dictator in my own house. And he said to me, I'm completely oblivious to the fact that this was recreational complaining. He offers coaching, which I was not looking for. And he says, Liz, why don't you try asking your children questions? Maybe tonight you just ask them nothing but questions. And of course, my knee-jerk reaction was, impossible. I can't do that because I'm going to get home about 6. I can't get them to bed till 9:30. That's 3.5 hours. That's crazy. That's ridiculous. And he said something like, I know. And it was just enough to annoy me into taking this challenge. And I decided if I'm taking this challenge, I'm actually going big with this challenge. All the way, not a single statement would come out of my mouth that night. And I did it. And dinner was interesting, and playtime after dinner was interesting. And we got to bedtime. I asked, kids, what time is it? It was like 8:30. They knew. They said it's bedtime. What happens first at bedtime? We put away our toys. Where does that go? Okay, who needs help getting their pajamas on? My 2-year-old needed help. Who's going to be the first to brush their teeth? And then still my favorite question is your toothbrush wet? Because that's usually a pretty good test of did this not happen? And then it's like, what story are we going to read tonight? Who's picking the story? Who's going to read the story? And at the end of story time, I said, well, what happens after story time? And the little angel said, we say prayers, Mom. And then I asked, who's ready for bed? Me! I'm ready! It's like they had waited all day for this moment to get in their beds. And they did, and they got in their beds, and they stayed in their beds, and they went to sleep. And I am standing out in the hallway that connects their room alone with nothing to do, but to wonder, how long have they known how to do this? I mean, they seemed like little bedtime idiots last night, but yet tonight they're like geniuses. And I found that when I shifted into the mode of asking the questions, my kids knew the answers. They knew how to get themselves in bed. They knew where their backpack went. I kept this up for 3 nights as an experiment, totally unbeknownst to my husband that this was going on. About night 3, I realized, perhaps the people who work for me on my management team don't really need me telling them what to do. What would happen if I asked and let the people around me find the answers? It forever changed the way I led. So maybe you take this extreme question challenge. And I'm not in any way suggesting you live permanently in this space, because that's creepy. But maybe you just try it once. Or maybe if you're a bit of an always-on character, maybe you take the poker chip challenge and you go into a meeting or maybe even a workshop and you say, you know what? I'm going to contribute my opinions in small but intense doses. I'm going to play fewer chips. And You play your chips sparingly at intervals, and you let other people come in. Not only do other people get more heard, when you come in big, and you're more heard as well. Maybe you learn to give the pen back. When you help, you have to remember to return that accountability. Maybe you supersize someone's job, and you give them a job that's a size or two too big. The way we shop for shoes for our toddlers, right? You don't buy them to fit. You buy them a couple sizes up, and what do you say when they say, but Daddy, my feet are flopping around in these shoes? You'll grow into it. Or as my friend from Australia said, he said, I just told my daughter, oh, suck it up, princess. Parenting down under, but I have had bosses who have essentially said that to me, suck it up, princess, you can do this. One of them is here in this room, Carrie Patterson, who I worked for 27 years ago. Instead of responding quickly, maybe you stop. Carrie? You know, I have to share a Carrie moment with you. I'm working for Carrie, and I'm editing what he writes. I think Carrie is a genius. He's one of my idols, and I just am honored to get to edit anything that he writes. And I get to this, like, kind of a terrible paragraph. It's this tangle of words. And I'm doing my normal editing, copy edits, and in the margin of the paper, I write the letters AWK. Standard editorial term for awkward, right? I do all my edits because I figure I can't quite figure it out. It's a mess, but Carrie, with his enormous brain, will surely be able to improve this, right? I take it, I leave it on his desk. He comes back for lunch. And I know he's coming back from lunch because he's coming for me, you know? And he's marching down the hall to my office where he walks in, takes this document, drops it on my desk, and says, don't you ever give me an AWK without an FIX. And then with that little twinkle in his eye, and I'm shaking like this. But it was one of the great professional lessons of my career. What he's saying is, you know what? Supersize it, girl. You know what? Suck it up, princess. You can figure this out. Do your job. He gave the pen back to me. And I've shared that lesson with a lot of people who have worked on my teams. Maybe if you're a bit of an optimist, you create a safe place for people to make mistakes. Let me leave you with one final image. And you might recognize this image. This is from Man on Wire. If we could get this slide up on the screen. This is Philippe Petit, this crazy French tightrope artist who quite famously strung this cable between the then standing World Trade Towers back in the 70s. And 1,500 feet in the air, 150 feet across. But the image I like is not him out on this wire. The image I like is this one here where he's taking a single step. And he described his first step, where he stood there on this cable attached to the building. He said, I had one foot on the cable attached to the building, the other foot on the cable out over this expanse. And I have all my weight on my back foot. And he said, I had to make a decision. Do I shift my weight? And he said, something called me out on that cable. And of course, it wouldn't call you or me. But it spoke to him, and he said, I just shifted my weight. That's all. And with his weight on the front foot, the rest was easy. He was out there on this cable for like 40 minutes. It was play. It was easy. The hard part was the shift. You know, what shift might you make? What small shift of weight would allow you to be more of a multiplier, to have more of these multiplier moments? When you shift your weight, it invites other people to shift their weight, and that's where we truly get the multiplier effect inside our organizations. Thank you.